I was talking to a private client this week, and you guys all know this person, very, very, very big influencer and popular. And there's a little struggle there because they're getting a little burnt out. And one thing that I was sharing with them that would help you guys too is that we were having this conversation, and it was about just, all of us are all working. By the way, Manny, I know you have a question. I'm going to start with that because I got all my notes right here. But one thing I shared with them that I would share with you guys is while we're on this entrepreneurial adventure, just make sure that you have a hobby. Everyone's like, we're all doing this to get to some mystical place, some destination. But one thing that you're going to find is that there is no destination.
Right.
It's just the journey. Right? There really isn't a destination. It's just like everything that is important happens along the way. And sometimes the things that make us really, really good entrepreneurs, it makes us suck at other stuff that's more important. Right? Like sometimes what makes us really good in business makes us stink at personal relationships. And, we're too focused on one thing. So we don't focus on. So my biggest suggestion is don't have some mystical, magical thing that you're going to do when you finally get to wherever you think you're going. Start today. One of the rules that I was taught was, rule number 14, 15, take off 1 day per week, no matter what. No matter what, take off 1 day fully, completely, totally, no matter what, no matter how important the business thing is or how much you love it. And engage in the stuff that you love to do with who you love to do it with when you want to do it. Just prioritize it, because otherwise we could end up where this person is, who is a really, really good person, that you guys, I'm sure, all know and look up to. And they're like really having a hard time because they've got nothing left other than what they have. And if you get to the top of that mountain by yourself, you'll jump off. So anyway, just a note here to prioritize your activities. Get a hobby, right? That's it. I've got 5 acres. I just changed my shirt. I just brushed my hair. I was covered in palm fronds and holly clippings because I was out there on the 5 acres chopping and planting banana trees. And but it's so important, right? So anyway, I just really want to encourage you guys, make sure you're doing the fun stuff, because you never know when things could change. So with that said, Manny had some questions this week, so I'm going to get to. I want to go through that because these are some things that are really important and critical to kind of like leveling up and having success. Hey, Gabe, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Look at that handsome guy. You're looking good.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie, how are you doing?
Hi, good, thanks.
Good. So we were just saying we're going to keep this group really, really, really small. I'm not even talking about it with anybody. So we're going to keep this small. So any questions you guys have, just ask and interrupt. And this is going to be a great adventure. So we're going to get right into it. So Manny had some questions about the executive assistant and when and how and what and where and why. And guys, I am so excited that Manny, you asked this question, because this is like my favorite topic of all time, because it is such a game changer. And it really does it's like the difference between owner benefit of like all the benefits of being the owner and not having any of the benefits of being an owner, right? So, and it all comes down to an executive assistant. Now, let me just reference a few things. There's 3 books that are really, really critical here that are going to be. Everything that I regurgitate just comes from better people than who I am, right? So these are the experts. So the books that I went through early on that were recommended to me was by, first of all, Jan Jones, The CEO Secret Weapon. She was Tony Robbins' executive assistant for a long time. She wrote a phenomenal book. It's filled with just pearls of wisdom. The other one, Amanda Webster recommended it to me, and it's actually, I think I have it right here. It's called The Second in Command by Cameron Herold. This is a good book because really what you want is your executive assistant or executive assistants or your executive assistant's executive assistant, right? You want them to do better than you, right? That's ultimately the goal. If they can come into an organization, take a leadership role, and then eventually surpass you. Tony came in, and Tony counts, and Stephanie knows Tony, and she's like has her own business now, and she's like crushing it. Lorena was before her. Lorena is Actually, Jamie and Gabe, you guys met Lorena years and years and years ago, like a decade ago. But we flew her in from the Philippines. I guarantee she's one of the wealthiest people in the Philippines right now. All I see is like exotic birds, exotic cars, exotic houses, right? So this is another great book by Cameron, Second in Command. And then there's another one. It's called The Four Columns of Execution, or the Four. Oh, I don't have it in front of me, but there's another one too that I'm going to be referencing. So with that said, I'll dive right in. And for everybody, right? Here is kind of the journey that I see. I have gone on through all of my exits and that I see my clients go through. Here it is, just raw and unfiltered. First of all, to just make $15,000 a month in your pocket, you don't really need anybody, right? As entrepreneurs, we should all be able to put 15K in our pocket pretty regularly with just by using our basic sales skills, our charisma, our personalities, our solving one problem for one person one way. 15K per month should be pretty standard for, I think, all of us, right? So I would suggest Bo Burlingham from Small Giants teaches us this, right? And so do other great leaders, right? All of them will say the same thing, which is for your 15K per month, you're on your own, right? Just don't bother anybody. You don't need a team. You don't need a lot of tools. It's just, just keep it simple, right? 15K per month is pretty standard. As soon as you get to 15K, my suggestion is you get an executive assistant. So what is an executive assistant? An executive assistant is really your right-hand person. This is the person who gets to know you. They know your preferences. They'll know things that you're going to do before you're going to do them. They know how you like to travel. They know what you are going to do. They know what you say you're going to do that you really won't ever get to, and they know what you're definitely not going to do that you'll shut down right away, right? So they're your gatekeeper. They're nurturing. They're protective, and I'm going to kind of go through how to find them and what they look like. I'm probably going to offend some people, but I'm 47 now, so I don't care if I offend anybody. So with the truth, right? So here's what it looks like. Executive assistant, number one, just like rule number 12, they have to already have a job. So I'm going to share this with you guys going forward. Anybody you hire, no exceptions, better have a job, right? You want to come work for me? Go get a job first, and then I'll steal you from that organization. But if you don't have a job, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear single mom, COVID, I was pregnant, I broke my leg, I got laid off. I don't want to hear it. If you don't have a job, automatically you're kicked off of out of the interview. It's a hard pass. Let Fortune 1000 companies figure out why people aren't working. I'm a small business. I don't have the time, energy, resources to do that. So first and foremost, you must have a job. This is true with salespeople too. If you go across the board to the top closing salespeople, you'll see that every single one of them had a job somewhere else before they came in. It's almost like 100%. It's not nearly 100%. Same exact thing with executive assistants. Executive assistants, when you talk to somebody and you say, well, what were you doing before you were with Oren or Dean or Mike or Scott? They go right to like, oh, I was working for somebody else. They didn't really appreciate me, and I wasn't getting fulfilled, or I wasn't part of the team. You never hear one of the top people say, oh, I was just at home, like I wasn't working. Anyway, if you want to level up, they've got to already have a job. Number two is this. If I want to buy a mug, I'm going to go to the mug factory, right? Well, if I'm going to get an executive assistant, I'm going to the executive assistant factory, which is college. So college is a must, right? I always tell my kids, right? Like I like some of my kids are A students and some of my kids are C students. And I always say to the A students, I'm like, be nice to your C student siblings because you're going to be working for them one day. So just my position on this is college is an absolute. If they don't have a college degree, hard pass. It shows a certain level of intelligence and it shows a certain level of follow through. So already working, already has a job. Manny, these are like the two pillars. If there are columns that hold up the business, those are like the two columns. The third one is a great executive assistant should have bookkeeping experience. The reason that this is important is for two reasons. The first reason is oftentimes a bookkeeper or the person who has a little bit of bookkeeping experience, or they understand how to work QuickBooks, or they understand numbers and all of that. they're usually going to have been in a more trustworthy position, which is critical, right? Because if you see people where the EA like stole money or there was a problem, very often one of the things was they didn't have bookkeeping experience. It was like, oh, I hired my sister-in-law, or I hired my family member, whoever. So bookkeeping experience is key, and also the EA is going to help you interpret your numbers and KPIs. So they need to be just familiar with that stuff. The other thing, which I'm going to get in trouble for, is this. And I'm not going to give you advice, Mandy, or a suggestion. I'm just going to tell you an experience share. In my experience, 100% of the best performers in our space, the EA was a female, not a male. So do with that what you want, but that's just the way it was. They were there. I don't have a single exception. There's not one person I can point to who's a mentor or who's been an influence in my life who had a male executive assistant. Also, just so you know the operation of my mind, right, when I'm doing this, the other thing that I would suggest is this. Whenever anyone who's sitting in my seat giving advice, always look, if you're not sure, if you're like, well, is that really true what Tom is saying? One thing that you could always do is always look at the inverse of the advice. So if I'm saying, well, this person should be working and this person should have a college degree and they should have bookkeeping experience and it should be a female, you should be able to pull up examples where where the EA, it was a disaster, and that person should be breaking some of those rules. Because you'll often see that with advice. When advice is not good, the inverse is also not true. But when advice is good and solid, you'll see that like, oh, these people who, when they were kids, they were bullies, they didn't turn out so great. Or when they were kids, they were spoiled, they didn't turn out so great. You should be able to see, like when people say don't spoil your kids, you should be able to see that kids who were spoiled now at our ages didn't have a good outcome, right? So always be looking at that. So female tends to be the number one box that you can check for people who've had a lot of success who came before us, all the men and women of consequence. And that's regardless whether the owner is a man or a woman. So they're just always female. The other thing that I would do here, and Mandy, this would apply to you guys, is I like to do is I will do all the interviews, right? So I'll have whoever's working with me set up all the interviews. The person must be local. This, I would say, is probably the first most important piece of advice. Why is local so important? The reason that local is so important is because in order to have true owner benefit, you need to have like a person who's your right-hand person that you're kind of like going to grow up into. It's called an EA role now, but really it's a COO position. Right? It's really the chief operating officer. It's a person who like nothing goes through unless this person is aware of it. They have full power to basically run the whole company operationally. So they have to be local because you're going to be meeting with them. I'll give you a little trick that works that will change your whole life. Have your EA, right? Meet with you locally once a week. Everybody on this call should know, guys, if you want a game changer piece of advice, I know I'm a fire hose right now of information, but this will change your whole life. Everyone right now should know that this is week 12 of 2026. Run your company by the week, not the month. The month is too slow. It's too slow. It's like pouring molasses on everything. You got to be on the week, every week. What are my numbers? What are my numbers? What are my numbers? And the number one number that you want your EA to track is this. It's called OAC, which stands for Owner's Actual Compensation, right? So how much money moved from the business to my pocket on week 11? That's the number one thing that I care about on week 12. This is not charity. I'm not doing this as a hobby. If I'm going to spend time away from my wife and children and my friends and my 5 acres and my food forest and all of that, I want to know that I'm being compensated because I'm bringing good people, good value. So the only way that that's working is if you have money that's coming from the business to your pocket every week. And I will say to you, I'll share with you guys, right? If this is the only thing that you take from me in this whole entire experience is you just take I'm going to move from a monthly calendar to a weekly calendar. And this is week 12 of 2026. I hope I got that right now that I'm preaching it, but I think I am. But am I good? Okay, there you go. So, but I want to know in week 11, right? On week 12, I want to know week 11, owner's actual compensation. This is so critical because you'll notice if in 2 to 3 weeks something's going wrong, you'll pick up on it. But if it's 2 or 3 months, that ship has sailed. That problem is already way worse. It became a legal problem or whatever. But the reason that you want your assistant to be local is because there's going to be local things that you're going to want them to help with. Now, what are you going to want them to help with? This is the way to picture an EA, and this will forget all of the fancy SOPs and all these acronyms, right? That's all too complicated. This is what it should look like. If you want to have a business, right, that just brings you peace of mind and consistent income, right, and just makes your life better, then the way to look at your executive assistant is number one, as a team member, right? They do not work for you, they work with you. Nobody works for you, right? They work with you. And what they're doing is they're taking everything off of your plate that is non-revenue producing. That's the way to think of an EA. The biggest mistake that a lot of people make with an executive assistant is, first of all, they'll have them doing things that they weren't doing before. So they'll say, oh, well, now that I have an EA, I'm going to start inventing all these new things, reports and da-da-da. I don't care what my EAs are doing. I don't care. Go do whatever you want to do. Don't bother me. Whatever you have to do and do it, when you can, and get it done and enjoy your day. Like I don't want to micromanage. So if you don't follow this advice, this is what will happen. You will actually have the expense of an executive assistant, and you'll have more work instead of less, and you'll have less time to produce revenue. So if you start inventing all of these new forms and tasks and silly things that you weren't doing before, right? Because my owners will tell me, they'll say, oh, well, Tom, I'm paying my EA, 40,000, 60,000, whatever, whatever the number is. And, I want to make sure that they're working. No, you don't. That's not your job. Your job is not to make sure that they're working, right? Your job is to go produce revenue. So worry about yourself. So Manny, that's the number one thing with your EA, is the way to look at this is, number one, they're going to take stuff off my plate that is the non-revenue generating activity that you are best at right now. The second thing that I would ask of you is this. Just understand, for the first 35 days or so, they are going to make tons of mistakes, and that's totally okay. Like, it's not a big deal. No one's going to come in and just be a rock star, right? What you're looking for is a good person who is not going to lie or be dishonest or steal or anything like that, and that has, a level of intelligence that you can operate with, which is good, which is why we do it for the college degree. Other than that, you're not a Fortune 500 company. Just look for a good person and have them come alongside of you. When they make a mistake, just encourage them. It's not a big deal. It happens all the time. Everyone who's ever worked with me has made tons of mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Not a big deal, right? This is not life or death, right? We're all still relatively young, and we can start from scratch if we had to. They're not going to bring down the house because of the wrong phone number that went on the postcard, right? Lorena did that, right? We sent out this big postcard. She put the wrong phone number to the buyers instead of the sellers or whatever. So just know they're going to make a ton of mistakes. Here is how you know that you have the right person. Within the first 90 days, don't evaluate anything except for dishonesty, right? If you catch them in a lie, even if it's a white lie, immediately fire, no questions asked, right? Remember rule 11, right? Hire fast, fire fast, promote fast, right? So if they lie, immediately fire, no question asked. Because if you have a liar in your organization, they could devastate they could shut down the whole company. So first 90 days, total wash, right? From days 91 to 120, what you want to look for is that your income has gone up per month, at least a bare minimum of $15,000 per month. That's it. That's the test, right? So let's just say you're doing $40,000 a month, right? And now we're on day 90, right? And now you're going to start tracking day 91 to 120, that fourth month. How much has my gross total revenue, not net, right? Total revenue. If you're at 40,000, now you should be at 65,000. Does that make sense? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. If you do that, you have the right person. It's hopefully more than 15,000, but it has to be at least 15,000. And I promise you that if that's the way you handle it and don't micromanage them, right? If you do that, that will be a game changer. The other thing that I would suggest that you do is once per week, meet with your, oh, wait a second, we got to go back. Boop, boop, boop. More important than anything else. The way that I usually do it is I will wind down the interviews to like 2 or 3 people, and then I ask my wife, Julie, to do the interview. The reason, I know we talked about that before, Manny, right? But the reason I do that is, first of all, a fewfold. First of all, there's just the dynamic of men and women, and your wife is going to have an opinion about which women you work with. I mean, so let's just be real about what, reality, right? So your wife is a better judge of character than you are. That's why you guys are married, right? Because women are better judges of character than men entrepreneurs. I mean, I can tell you that 100%, right? The guys tend to like fall in love with everybody really quick, and the women are like, well, hold on, not so fast, right? So that's number one. Number two is that, so first of all, it's just appropriate, but they're a better judge of character. And then there's a trust issue, right? Because I'm sure anybody who's been in this industry for any length of time, you all know the stories, right? And you want to talk about bringing down, forget the business. Now you're really done if you have a problem like that. So I would just suggest wind it down to 2 or 3 people, and then have your wife do the final interview, which will serve you really well. The other thing to do with your EA is once a week, meet with them in person and go over your KPIs in your books. What you're looking for is what most entrepreneurs do is, and I see this all the time, I don't care how big and fancy, the boat, the yacht, the car, the blah, 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 I don't care. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how fancy you are. I see this all the time with all the people that all of us look up to, and I get to see, and Stephanie and I and Tony get to see the P&L, right? And here's what I'm gonna tell you. Most owners, what they do is they don't really wanna face reality with numbers. So what they do is they look at their gross number, and then they're like, oh, I'm rich, so I'm gonna lease, if they're an agent, they always get like a white Mercedes or a white Land Cruiser, right? Like, or if they're like an investor, they get like a sports car, right? So it's like such a pattern, right? What the EA is supposed to do is basically, like Manny, grab you from the collar and be like, bro, you see this number right here? You're broke. Like, you're losing money on this deal. And the problem is most owners, not all, if you are in a disc profile where you are like on a PI, if your avatar, your archetype is like an architect or an engineer type, or finance, then you won't do this. But most of us we get euphoric enthusiasm, and we look at the gross number and then we spend money. So the EA's job is to bring you back down to reality and only look at net, not gross, and to say, hey, these are where the lines are trending. Her job is to force you to look at those numbers, right? The numbers that you are avoiding. And I'm telling you, Manny, brother, you're avoiding numbers. Trust me. Everybody does it. We all do it because we like to live in some fake reality, right? So if you meet with the EA, and any of you, if you want it, and Stephanie can help you get it, is just have Tony give you my EPLS report. It just stands for easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's basically the 14 numbers of my business, the numbers that matter to me. I want to know my OAC every week. I want to know my personal net worth once a month. I want to know the personal net worth, right, that we talked about. I want to make sure how much is in gold and silver, how much is in the compound interest in the stock market, how much is in cash that I can grab right now for travel or transportation, how much is in it's in real estate, and how much is in my speculation account, Bitcoin, individual stocks, things like that, right? So the thing that I always want to look at is I want to know what's my personal net worth, I want to know what's my OAC. This is a really, really big one that would help you so much with your EA. I want to know what are my 8 biggest expenses every month in the company, right? Just in general buckets. What are my 8 biggest, right? Because those are the ones that move the needle. I care about I don't want to work on the little pity paddle nothing. I want to work on the big numbers, right? So the first page I look at is, what are my 8 biggest expenses? And then the next page is, what are my 8 specific expenses? So let's just say that Tony says payroll is my biggest expense, right? I want to know which people are on my payroll that are the biggest expense. If I'm paying Johnny, Sally, and Bobby $280,000 a year, I want to be reminded of that every single time I sit down. every single time I sit down so that I can say, are Johnny, Sally, and Bobby really bringing that much value that they need to literally be taking this much of the company? Is it appropriate? Is it hurting the other people on the team? So I want to know general expenses. I want to know specific expenses. Those are key. And I go by the top 8, which is the key in my estimation. I also want to know on my EPLS report, my bank balances. Right. So if you guys use Profit First, which I strongly recommend, Mike Michalowicz is a genius, I think, with that system. I want to know what is the current bank balance and what's the average been for the past 12 months. And I want to know what number should I not fall below. So if my average bank balance is 280,000 and Tony says to me, well, I don't want you to fall below 80,000. I want to know, where is my bank balance? What's my average been on a line chart? And what's the bare minimum that, hey, if it falls below this number, it's week 12. I want to know. I want to know right now, like, let me know so I know to like stop spending or increase, go after revenue or something like that. And then the other numbers are really personal to you, right? For me, I coach coaches, I run a mastermind for that business. So it's, what's my MRR and what's the churn rate and the retention rate and the KPIs of the business? What's my conversion rates? But the thing that I would encourage you to do, Manny, and all of you guys with your EA is this. Life is really short, and you want to try to reduce your suffering as much as possible, right? That's what a business does. It allows you freedom, flexibility, and wealth, which is more options and better options than other people. So what I would do as a breathing exercise, right, is first of all, calm down, slow down, start your morning with just a meditation on, okay, what is a KPI? A KPI is a number that it's a number that is dynamic. It means to me that I can move a lever to get more of something that I want or less of something I don't want. That's how you should look at your KPIs and your numbers, right? Is a KPI it's not to feed my ego about how great I am. A KPI means that it's like I'm sitting in a cockpit and I can adjust levers to change course, right? On lift, drag, weight, and thrust. So I know if something's really weighing me down, like I have one particular person on payroll who's not really even showing up to meetings and they're not even a good cultural fit and they're like my second highest expense, why would I keep them, right? Or there's not a good ROI on a particular ad spend. The key with your EA is reality on your numbers and then just a recognition of garbage in, garbage out. And that'll change. And many, and all of you guys, right? This is, again, it's just a breathing exercise. You should be looking at this, you should be able to breathe through it. I don't know how to explain it when I'm saying that I breathe through it, but what a lot of owners do is they're trying to just feed their ego, or they're getting a report that somebody puts together that they don't really ever look at. I mean, I'm telling you, they don't look at it, right? So the EA is there to kind of hold you accountable, to say, hey, look, we really need to look at this. And by the way, and then one thing that Tony would do for me is she would circle. I mean, she's my controller now, right? So she does it for other people, but, or she does it, as a service, but we will circle stuff like, hey, this is something right here. This is important. There's been a big change. Or, you have a big event coming up in Orlando. It's $100,000. So, that's why this is out of whack right now, but it'll kind of taper itself out. It's a breathing exercise, as you should be like breathing through it and not feeling that euphoric enthusiasm that we tend to get as owners. So that's how you want to just in and out, just breathe in and out and just go through the numbers, and it should be logical. You want to be more stoic than emotional. That's what the KPI report is. That's why your EA is there. Your EA is to say, hey, Manny, I'm going to take everything off your plate. You go do you. I'll make a few mistakes. Just stay in communication with me all the time so that I know where I'm messing up, and I'll make it better. And I'll just allow you to blossom so that this company can grow. And then your EA comes right along with you. And then they end up, Tony was a great example, right? She was my EA. Then she was my, bookkeeper. Then Pace, said, hey, can I hire her? Pace Morby hired her. Then she became my controller. Then now she's the controller for other companies. She reviews all my private clients. But that's what happens. Now she has partial ownership in a bookkeeping business with Cody, not Sperber, Cody Barton. So that's what you want. Everybody, basically, you want to pick a person who you're confident can surpass you. That's like real leadership, right? It's that they go into their own thing and they're still helping out, or maybe not, but they're like Lorena's not with me anymore, right? She works now full time with Brent Daniels and other people. But if you can help, that's the breathing exercise part of nice and calm and steady Eddie. You're looking for a team player who can actually make a real contribution. And the thing that I would say is this: if you can find a good person, who really is good at like running the show. If you go somewhere, like you and the wife go to Club Med and you see Tony Counts like basically running the whole show, just hire her on the spot. Just be like, yeah, that's the key. So does that kind of make sense? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yes. Now how do you hire? Like, where do you find them? Like an ad,
Yeah,
post an ad, or
post
like,
an ad. Yep. And then just the secret to hiring the right people is this: the more people you interview, the better you'll get at interviewing. The more people you talk to, the more you'll know who's full of poop in 30 seconds and who's not. You got to make eye contact. You got to set the standard of who you're willing to meet with. But if someone can help you meet if you're looking right now, 2 or 3 20-minute interviews per week are great, as long as they hit that criteria. College graduate, female, already has a job, boom, 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 all of that. Local, they have to be within a 20-minute drive.
where would you put ads? Or I was also thinking about looking at the employment agencies. Is that a
Yeah,
good
you
idea?
could. I mean, I usually have used ads. I think Indeed is where I found Tony, but I found Lorena on Upwork, or it was called something else back then. I don't remember what it was used to be.
And then you put local. She's local.
Lorena wasn't local because I didn't know that when I first started, and then I hired local after Stephanie. Not this different. Stephanie was my very, very first local. And then I went to my mentors and we started to go over the rules of like, okay, what are the rules when you hire an executive assistant? Because I never asked. And yeah, I would say I think Indeed is where I found Tony, and she was awesome. The minute I met her, because I had interviewed so many people, the second I met her, I already knew. I'm like, okay, she's the one that I want to hire for sure. And then I had Julie do the final interview, and Julie was like, yeah, 100%, she's awesome. Good person, honest, loyal, hardworking, nurturing, caring, wants to be part of something bigger than herself, wants to contribute, like super sharp, super like, intelligent, like she knew stuff, smarter than me. And you want to hire somebody, most of us were C students, right? So you want to hire somebody smarter than you. Yeah, that's it. Just Indeed, I would say, is a good way to go. And then, but the key here is the more people you interview, the better you get at it. If you don't interview a lot of people, you're going to get somebody with a smile who's going to come in with a whole bunch of promises, and you're not going to know how to navigate those waters, because some people are really good at interviewing, and those are like the scariest people you've ever met. So you interview like 25 people, I guarantee you're going to know what to listen for. You'll just hear it. You'll just understand their pattern is different. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend. Does that make sense? And you're already over that number, so I would get one really quick and then just look at day 90. And then just, but once you have an EA, your whole life will change. And then your whole life will change, because now you have the actual owner. Remember, you're not in business for money. That's not why you do what you do. Money doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. And I don't mean that like it's some spiritual holier than thou thing. I just mean like you're not after money. You're after the things that money can provide you, right? You're after the wealth, more options, better options. When something happens to you, how many options do you have? Those are wealthy people, right? You have no team, you got fewer options. I'm telling you right now, you got less money, you have fewer options. So it's not that it's that, some people will be like, well, if I don't hire them, then I can save the money. You don't understand the way entrepreneurship works if you think that way, right? It's I know it sounds silly, but you've got to fight for success, right? A good night's sleep, right? When you go to bed, you put your head on the pillow. You're not riddled with anxiety and depression, right? You go to bed at night, you put your head on the pillow, fall asleep, and wealth, which is is external, meaning success is internal, wealth external, right? You have more options and better options than other people. That's what wealth is. It's a comparison. So it's very, very hard to have any wealth without a team. If you have no team, it's difficult to have wealth, because then all you have is some extra money, but you don't actually have, your options are more limited. Does that kind of make more sense that way?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And then,
and it helps
yeah.
a lot that you say, yeah, hiring, like sometimes I sit down and I'm like, I need to hire somebody, but then what task can I make up so they could start doing new tasks? But
Yeah.
you're
So
right. Like,
let
so
me just tell you, because you're like a Superman kind of character type. So let me just say this, right? You're going to struggle in the beginning a little bit. This is, I kind of emphasize the mistakes thing. Just understand they're going to make mistakes in the beginning, and you're not Superman. You're not doing anything that's so amazing. You're not launching a rocket. None of us are, right? We're not launching a rocket to space. Like, I know you think that what you do is so highly specialized, like nobody could like talk to the sellers or the brother. Believe me, like you're going to be replaced by AI in like 20 minutes, right? So just relax, right? Take a chill pill. The best thing to do, checklist manifesto, right? Brian Tracy recommends this book. Read the book, make whatever you do into something that my 17-year-old daughter can understand, right? How do you find your leads? Oh, well, okay, Lacey, it's not that hard. This is what I do first. Well, first of all, hold on. What kicks off the checklist? Well, it's when a lead comes in, or it's like a date and time, like Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we kick off the checklist. Okay, my daughter can understand that, right? So what happens is there's a catalyst that triggers, it triggers the catalyst triggers the checklist, right? This is what's happening to you. Like if I'm over your head and I'm just watching you, right? Like if I'm like a fly on the wall and I'm watching what you do, there's something happening when you kick off a group of activities, right? It's not that complicated, right? A phone call comes in, or you need money, or you see an opportunity, or you drive by and see a certain type of house, or you go to the courthouse, or right? Bandit signs, billboards, TV, radio, mail pieces, cold calling, PPC, PPL, whatever. Something happens, or it's a date and time and you start your workday, and then it kicks off a series of actions that my 17-year-old daughter could do. She doesn't, she hasn't gone to college yet. And, so does that make sense? Because that's what holds back a lot of the owners, is that they think they're so specialized in like this, like they're a doctor. David Phelps, I understand he's an actual doctor, but other than David, like there's not that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm starting to understand. 50%, 60%, another person that does it 60% is 160 for me.
Brother, that's the whole secret. Marcus Lemonis teaches us, right? People, process, product. Just make sure they're all good and that there's checklists in place, right? So you have good people, not experts, right? Michael Gerber teaches us, right? Michael Gerber in the E-Myth teaches us this law. He says, extraordinary results, ordinary people. Extraordinary results, ordinary people, right? Not experts, not A players who are difficult to manage and fall off the wagon and they're so sensitive. And then when they make a big sale, they disappear for 3 weeks and then they come back. Those people that make your life a living heck, right? So what I would suggest instead is just start really getting good at putting checklists in place, right? You're not so great that you can't be made into a checklist, right? There's nothing that you do that's like, finding a lead, talking to a seller. Does that resonate?
Yes, I wanted my executive assistant to do the checklist, so I have to do the checklist. That's my job.
You have to
Okay.
do the executive assistant's checklist. But
Okay.
yeah, if you break it down into that simple pattern, your life will just be easier. And they'll make some mistakes in the first 35 days or so. It usually takes about 35 to 45 days for them to kind of like, a mistake is a weird word. A mistake just means like, what is the severity of your reaction to something that's not 100% the way you want it to be? That's really what a mistake is. So the burden of the mistake is really more on you than on them, right? Now, if you have a nefarious, devious, bad person, then you fire them, right? Remember rule 11, hire fast, fire fast, promote fast. And the other thing is, what is the salary range? It's all over the place. I know people who start with like minimum wage and people who then, as they excel, then their salary just goes up and up and up and up, depending on where they end up. But it's, you have to determine that based on where you live. If you live in Toronto, it's going to be a heck of a lot higher than if you live in like, Western Oklahoma, right? And that's a different story. So yeah, that's everything I have on an executive assistant. And everything that I shared with you, it's not my opinion. It comes from looking at where it works really well, right? And what gives these people the outcome that they're getting consistently. And it's always the simple stuff. It's always easy. It's always simple. It's not the complicated acronym or high vocabulary words. It's just all that stuff with, EOS and Gino Wickman and Vern Harnish and Scaling Up and Rise and blah, 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 all of that stuff. I mean, it's okay, but my suggestion, just get to $40,000 per month with simple checklists. And then later on, if you want to start moving rocks every quarter or whatever they teach, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm just saying this, just be careful of the things that, sometimes people will say to me, because I always teach never partner unless you can hire. And then, every once in a while I'll have somebody who say, well, I partnered and it worked out great. It's like, yeah, I understand, but you're like a total go-getter. It would have worked out great even if you didn't partner, right? So yes, sometimes these things help with clarity, but more often than not, I have seen that it's kind of like a very, very heavy system of management. And if you're not at least a bare minimum of 100,000 per month, bare minimum, then I think it's just overkill. And this book is way better, and the E-Myth is way better than any kind of big quarterly clarity. I need to have rocks moved and this and that, and it's just heavy. And I have these meetings. I sit on, oh, hey, will you sit on my L10 and my L this and that? And I'm like, I'll sit on it, and then everybody talks, and there's all this talk. And I'm not. Look, I will say this, Manny. For some people, I will say, very rarely in a very small company, it will work well. But for the most part, where I see an executive team where stuff is just getting done and numbers are going up and everyone's happy and the clients are happy and it's like results, it's far less process and it's far more ownership. So it's more about good people who are all rowing in one direction, right? With one leader saying when to row. And there's not one oar up in the water and somebody's going slow and it's always like a canoe, right? It's like the guy's at the front of the boat on the crew team and he's saying, go. And they all go, go. That's when you see these executive teams where they have high gross, high net, smaller teams, everyone in the company, the ratio is about 300 to 500,000 per employee. When we start to see the people where it's like 100 to 200 per employee or less, that's when you start to see they brought in these big heavy systems very, very early. And it's just a mismatch. So I'm not against them. I just think it's very heavy. So you don't need all that. If it's you and an EA and you get to 40K per month, and then you have an AM, an acquisition manager, I mean, brother, how much do you need? I mean, right? If you're putting 70K in your pocket a month, it's like, and the company's pretty much, running and, anyway, that's why I think the way you treat the EA is key. Because if you start bringing in an EA and then also EOS or something else, you're going to find that you're working more hours and you may not get the result that you want. I just, as a side note, because I'm saying this out loud, I just want to say a really good way to do this is, actually I made a Facebook post about it, but just make sure you get good at the basics before you bring in EOS. One person for one responsibility, just the basics, right? The things that mess companies up is that two or more people are responsible for the same outcome or responsibility. If that's the case in your organization, yes, EOS can help. Or Scaling Up can help, or Rise can help, but you can also just spend $2 on a mind map and just say, write the responsibility and say, Jenny's in charge of it. Like, that's it, it's over. Does that make sense? The way to look at your day, Manny, is revenue is right in the middle, right? And then there's these outer circles, right? Of like, who owes me money I'm going to collect from? Who are the sales that are waiting around to close that I haven't closed that if I just get off of the stupid calendar, I can close? What are the activities that I can do to generate the income? And as you go off in concentric circles out further and further, though, you have to find the point where it's like, hey, my executive assistant can handle all this other stuff. And even if she gets it wrong 60% of the time, I'm doing so much on the revenue side, it doesn't even matter. You know what fixes every mistake in a business is money and happy customers. That's it. I've never seen a company fail with sales and happy customers. That's not why they fail. But I've gone into a lot of companies where they're like, they have all these people and all these systems and processes and SOPs and da-da-da-da. And they're like, what should we do? And you know what we do? One person who's in one type of pain with one product. We just reduce it. We have all these different ways to acquire properties. We have all these different ways to sell properties. We do rehabbing and wholesaling and subject to and creative finance and sandwich lease purchase options upside down, da 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 da. Just every single person, if you read any story of anybody, when Wendy's came into KFC, Wendy's, the owner of Wendy's, he worked for Colonel Sanders at first, right? What was the first thing he did? Colonel Sanders, we have to reduce the menu. Right, when Canterbury came in to Barnes and Nobles, right, what was the first thing that they did? Right, when BAM Books was going out of business and Barnes and Nobles took over, reduce all the SKUs. When Steve Jobs came back into Apple, what was the first thing he did? He reduced the number of products he sold. Right, so we have all these great men and women of consequence who are telling us the secret. Right, but sometimes when you look at these companies that are only doing they're 2-3 million. And they have 5 solutions, 5 different, real estate is complicated enough. So you don't want to overcomplicate it. You don't want to continue to contort yourself. It's called a cash grab. You don't want to continue to contort yourself every single time there's a quote unquote opportunity, right? So if you continue to contort your body and your mind every single time there's an opportunity, you're going to just cause more suffering. So in order to reduce your suffering, reduce your product lines, reduce how many different things you do, get really, really, really good at them, and only put one person in charge of one thing at your company at a time. Like, who answers the phone? Who takes a lead? What's a lead? If I ask everybody in your company what a lead is, am I gonna get the same answer from everybody? If I ask everybody in your company, what does your company do? Am I gonna get the same exact answer if they're all in individual rooms and I talk to them privately, right? Like, what does ABC company do? That's usually where the heartbeat of the problem is. It's not in the lack of it's like a really big person, like a big person who's struggling with their weight, right? Who's like, oh, I'm going to add spinach. It's like, Tom, you could add spinach, but you got to lose 50 pounds first, right? So it's like, it's just, you got to work on the big obvious stuff first, and then you could work on tweaking the little things. That's how you approach your executive assistant. What you're looking for right now is, please allow me the time and space and luxury to work on the things in the business that are most important, that I actually am the only one who can handle. And that's how you start to see, and then you could start to implement systems. Does that kind of make more sense? But man, I would just do it, brother. And then just, if it doesn't work, it's better to have done it and then it doesn't work out. But I'm telling you for sure, once you do it, you'll be like, oh my goodness, I would never operate any business ever again without that resource, because it's compounding. The first 90 days stink, but then after day 90, then it's great. Then you're like, okay, this is what it looks like, and you'll never go without, And then as soon as you get to that 15K minimum, as soon as you get consistency there, then you go right to your next person, which is marketing, right? Same exact thing, right? So now you're at 30,000 a month, at least bare minimum, 30,000 per month, and now you have a full-time marketing person. And then, of course, the third hire is your salesperson. And that's usually when you're at, you can make an argument for less, but 45,000 per month. And you could do a little bit less than that. It is possible. But typically when we do a deep dive of these businesses of how they started, executive assistant, marketing person, salesperson. That's basically the trajectory. And I know you're like, oh man, is this so simple? It's so simple. It's like, that's the whole thing, this whole thing, everybody overcomplicates it, but it's so brain dead simple. Like, it's just like this I remember when we were deep diving these companies and we would go through this and it was the same thing. And I'd be like, okay, so you hired an assistant. It's like, yeah. What do they do? Like assistant type work. Okay. And then what? Oh, and then, well, we needed more leads and I was the best at closing. So we hired marketing first. Okay. When things go wrong, right? When do things go wrong? Well, the first person I hired was a salesperson. It's like, okay. Right. So it's like, and then it's like things go wrong, right? So, because a salesperson needs assistance, right? They need leads. They need like a system to go into. So it's just, the more that the advantage that we have in our seat, Stephanie and I, is that we get to see the inner workings and the histrionics of all of these companies, right? That we're just coming in all the time and we're like peeling apart. Guys, I'm telling you, all of these owners, they're all exactly the same, right? It's like, Manny, this is where, and I'm not just talking, it's for all of us, right? It's for just keep it very, very simple and logical. Trust your gut. Your gut will never let you down. Not your heart, not your head, your gut, lower abdomen. Put your hand on your belly and just go with what you, like everything that I'm sharing with you, you should be like, yeah, it makes sense that my wife should interview the EA. Yeah, it makes sense that they should have a job, right? Yeah, it makes sense that they're going to make some mistakes. Like there shouldn't be anything that I'm sharing with you where you're like, oh, that's counter like intuitive. Everything that I'm sharing it should feel very natural and organic. Like this is a normal way to grow a business. And then you could take a punch, right? You're stronger. You can take a punch. You can take a hit because you have more success and wealth. All of this stuff is towards success and wealth. It's the luxury of the time to breathe and, thinking and writing and looking at your business is a luxury. You don't want to always be in the trench. You can start in the trenches, but then you got to make it back to the general's tent so that you can keep the whole platoon safe. So that's what this is all about. Is there's a slow stepping back, like Michael Gerber teaches us, right? Like the girl in the pie shop, right? She bakes the pies, she cleans the floors, she opens, she closes, she's at the cash register, and then what does Michael Gerber teach us, right? Your product is your company. It's not what your company sells, right? That's your product. When buyers look at your business, they do not care what you sell. They don't care if it's doorknobs or real estate coaching or houses. They care about the business. They want to buy revenue. They don't want to buy a job. They don't care what you sell. They don't care if it's pies or houses, right? So your product is your company. It's not what your company sells. That's how you want to look at your businesses. Does that land? It's a game changer once you really, especially if you wake up early in your household in the morning and it's quiet and all the kids are asleep and no one's biting each other and pulling each other's hair and stealing each other's toys. But if you go like 4:30 in the morning quietly in your prayer closet or a quiet space and you just think about this stuff, you'll see how some of these big guys and girls, even like the ones even that Tony and I and Stephanie work with, it's small inputs and huge outputs. And then so many other people, they're on a hamster wheel. They're moving and moving and moving and moving and moving, but they're not making any forward progress. The forward progress is in your thinking about the business. The move to hire an EA is deeply rooted in understanding entrepreneurship and what you're actually after, not just saving the extra cash. If that makes more sense. Questions, comments, concerns, wins, losses, frustrations. You got it? It's simple, right? Yeah, so just start interview. I would do three interviews a week and only with the people who set up that criteria. So if they don't set up the criteria, don't even interview them because it's not worth it. Because it's, yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's the EA. That's the secret. No secret. It's all common sense stuff. Of course, I will get in trouble in 20 years when I'm like, oh, it should only be a female, but I don't know. Well, I'll be in my 60s by then, so right now I'm okay. Here's what I can say. Over 200 people that we have, these are the 200 top people, top performers in real estate, in coaching, and in other businesses. A lot of them on the peripheral, like data companies, CRM companies. Of over 200, 100% were female when we took the top companies. There wasn't an exception. 100% were female. So, and then if you want to go a little deeper into that, talk to the guys and girls who had a problem, and you'll see that they broke one or more of those rules. It was a guy, they didn't have a college degree, they didn't have a job when they were hired. It's so black and white, it's ridiculous. So I would just stick with keep your life easy. Let other people figure out what's what. Any other questions, guys? Is that it? Easy peasy? Everyone understands this stuff? It's simple, right? Any other questions outside of EA stuff? No. All right. Joe, you got something? Are you trying to unmute? There he is. What's up?
Yeah. Hey, did you start your fast today?
No, and I have to make a Facebook post about it. I did not. Okay. I was supposed to actually start, and Julie, we had surprise company come in. And they're all cooked. They're in the noise that you hear in the background. I'm starting in 1 week. I'm going to update my Facebook. Okay. Yeah, they're literally cooking like cookies, and I'm like, oh, this is not the week to start.
You're like, damn it! All right.
No, I know. Julie said to me, she's like, I have a surprise for you. She said I didn't want to say anything because she said you were going to start a fast, but I was like, oh, brother. Yeah. I was like, I wish I would have known that because I ate in preparation for a fast. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Was not a pretty sight. So no fast. Next week is the fast. All
right, cool. Heck yeah.
But everything else is good, guys. Business, everyone's happy, healthy, and no questions, comments, concerns. Nothing that's All right, so we're gonna get back on track and on anything. Keep me posted on the EA stuff, but we'll yeah, anything that you guys have for me, let me know midweek if it comes up before our next call, and I'll make sure I address it on one of these calls. But I'm keeping this group super small, so this is for you guys. Anything I could do to help, even if it's a little off topic, I'm happy to get in, and we'll. If you tell me before the call, I'll have some time to like pull some resources, or maybe even if you guys need a connection or something like that. I'm happy to do that. So awesome. All right, guys.
Cool.
Enjoy the
Thank
day.
you.
I'll talk to you soon. And Manny, thanks for the question. All right, guys. Talk soon. Gabe, it was good seeing you, brother. Have a good one. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Good one.